Isn't it interesting that the mainstream media keeps talking about so-called election meddling and influence from foreign governments, and yet we continue to have this escalating issue, and only a handful of people, mostly, almost entirely online. There's almost no discussion of this in the regular media, and even a lot of the alt media doesn't want to bring this up for, I think, reasons that are probably obvious to most. But one of the major warning signs in October, or this was late last year, but one article from October just talking about some of the fallout from this. One instance where a Texas city was requiring a pledge to Israel in order to receive hurricane relief. City in Texas, city of Dickinson, about 30 miles south of Houston, posted grant applications for anyone seeking money for repairs after the Category 4 storm. This was in the wake of Hurricane Harvey. They had to sign a pledge not to boycott Israel. Local officials say that the pro-Israel clause is required under a Texas state law enacted earlier this year. The application has drawn it's been strongly criticized from free speech activists. So that was late last year. And here's a new article just from today saying that a Texas elementary school speech pathologist who refused to sign a pro-Israel oath, which is now mandatory in many states, she has lost her job as a result of refusing to sign this pledge. And they point out the Orwellian, they describe it as language from the actual pledge itself. Now, there's just one section. I'll go through more of what they're saying here. But just the first thing that I wanted to quickly look at, adding to how ridiculous all of this is the fact that Israel is singled out as being protected and violating free speech with this protection, even more so than the United States would be. Just this paragraph here, they say, in order to obtain contracts in Texas, then, a citizen is free to denounce and work against the U.S. If you have a contract in Texas, you can denounce and actively work against the United States all that you want. You could even advocate for causes that directly harm American children and even support a boycott of particular U.S. states. All of that is fine. To obtain contracts in Texas, you can do any of that. However, in order to continue work, Amawi is the last name of this teacher. She would be perfectly free to engage in any political activism against her own country, participate in an economic boycott of any state or city within the U.S., or work against the policies of any other government in the world, except Israel. So Israel's singled out. Any other government in the world you can criticize, and not only that, but you could actively work against the United States. You could actively advocate for action against the U.S., anything essentially, except Israel's singled out as having this special protection that even the U.S. doesn't have in the U.S. So let's look in more detail here. This is what's actually happening with, and this is going to affect several children, many children potentially, as this is one of the only specialists who is able to help, who has been working in over these past 9 years. She specializes, she's a children's speech pathologist. She works with developmentally disabled, autistic, and speech impaired elementary school students in Austin, Texas. She's been told that she can no longer work with the public school district after she refused to sign an oath vowing that she does not and will not engage in a boycott of Israel or otherwise take any action that is intended to inflict economic harm on that foreign nation. Everyone that gets this contract in Texas has to sign this pledge saying that they will never take any action to engage in a boycott of Israel. So she's filed a lawsuit on her behalf. This was filed early this morning in federal court in the Western District of Texas, alleging a violation of her First Amendment right of free speech. Child language specialist Bahia Amawi is a U.S. citizen who received a master's degree in speech pathology in 1999. And since then, she specialized in evaluations for young children with language difficulties. Amawi was born in Austria. She lived in the US for the last 30 years. She fluently speaks 3 languages. They say English, German, and Arabic, and has 4 US-born American children of her own. She began working in 2009 on a contract basis in the current district. She includes Austin as well. This contract was intended to provide assessments and support for school children from the county's growing Arabic-speaking immigrant community. Children with whom she has worked span the ages of 3 to 11. Ever since her work for the school district began in 2009, they say her contract was renewed each year with no controversy or problem. But this year, all that changed. On August 13th, the school district once again offered to extend her contract for another year by sending her essentially the same contract instead of certifications she had received and signed at the end of each year since 2009. She was prepared to sign her contract renewal until she noticed one new and extremely significant addition, a certification that was required to sign. She was required to sign this document pledging that she, quote, does not currently boycott Israel, that she will not boycott Israel during the term of the contract, and that she shall refrain from any action that is intended to penalize, inflict economic harm on, or limit commercial relations with Israel or with a person or entity doing business in Israeli or in an Israel-controlled territory. Language of the affirmation Amawi was told she must sign reads like an Orwellian or McCarthyite self-parody, classic political loyalty oath that every American should instinctively shudder upon reading. So there's one section from the contract saying, pursuant to the section of Texas Government Code, the contractor affirms that it does not boycott Israel currently and will not during the term of the contract. They break it down saying boycott Israel, in quotes, means refusing to deal with, terminating business activities with, or otherwise taking any action that is intended to penalize, inflict economic harm on, limit commercial relations specifically with Israel or with a person or entity doing business in Israel or in Israel-controlled territory. But that does not include an action made for ordinary business purposes, and company means a for-profit sole proprietorship, organization, association, corporation, partnership, joint venture, limited partnership, limited liability partnership, or any limited liability company, including a wholly owned subsidiary, majority owned subsidiary, parent company, or affiliate of those entities or business associations that exist to make a profit. So any of those groups above, any business that's categorized, basically anything, is subject to this. So this language from the contract would bar Amawi not only from refraining from buying goods from the companies located within Israel, but also from any Israeli companies operating in the occupied West Bank. The oath given to Amawi would also likely prohibit her even from advocating such a boycott, given that such speech could be seen as, from the contract, being action taken intended to penalize, inflict economic harm on, or limit commercial relations with Israel. So they go on and they are obviously criticizing this. They point out, even more bizarre, you can, again, criticize anything in the U.S. You could support boycotts of particular U.S. states. Somehow Israel has this special protection, though. The other governments around the world do not have the same protections. This required certification about Israel was the only one in the contract sent to Amawi that pertained to political opinions and activism. There were no similar clauses relating to children, such as a vow not to advocate for child abusers, people that harm children. There's no clause like that, nor were there any required political oaths that pertain to the country of which she is a citizen and where she lives and works, the United States. There's no U.S. loyalty pledge. Only this document saying to support Israel. That's one extraordinary aspect of the story. They're saying the sole The only political affirmation Texans like Amawi are required to sign in order to work with the school's district children is one designed to protect not the United States or the children of Texas, but the economic interests of Israel, as Amawi put it. To The Intercept reporting on this, she said that it's baffling that they can throw this down our throats and decide to protect another country's economy versus protecting our constitutional rights. So she has filed a lawsuit over this, and they just go into a little bit more history about some of the current boycott movements that are going on currently. Now, they do say how her being the only specialist, particularly with these language skills, this might mean that there are actually no other people to work with these children in this district. It might have the effect of you have these children with speech disabilities, speech impaired children that actually have no one to work with them now, because this woman has been fired, and she spoke these 4 different languages. So to have someone in that, to have an exact person, there's nobody that fills that exact role in that district, she's also arguing. So definitely having a serious impact, and people were already, some people, that at least the people that had heard about it, were outraged, many of them, over the hurricane relief, the pledge, similar pledge, pro-Israel pledge that they had to sign in Texas in order to get relief for Hurricane Harvey as well. That was a few months back, but you look in the regular media, and isn't it interesting? They have no problem talking about meddling and election meddling and collusion and all these sorts of things, yet they will not address this issue. Similar problem in some pockets of the alt media as well. But I will continue to follow this. Let me know what you think. I do have links to both articles in the video description. I also have a link to my Patreon account, patreon.com/realityreader. Thanks to everybody that supports the channel over there. PayPal link is also in the description. And yes, both articles, you can take a look. Tell me what you think, and I will follow up soon. Thank you.